Good afternoon. Welcome back to the Innovation Stage, or welcome to the Innovation Stage here at the Independent Hotel Show. So today's session is going to look at hotel disruptors. So in the next 30 minutes, I'm hoping that we understand what it takes to be a hotel disruptor so that your audience... My clicker's not working, guys. So the audience leave your hotel like this, as opposed to perhaps leaving, well, like this. But who am I? I'm not a designer, I'm not an architect, and I'm not a hotelier. So what qualifies me to stand up here and talk to you about hotel disruptors? My name is Hamish Kilburn. I'm the editor of Hotel Designs, which is the leading international hotel design online platform. We publish the latest news, features, reviews, interviews, and I think I'm also the only hotel design editor that reviews hotels standing on his hands. That's kind of my signature thing, and it's become a bit of an obsession. Everywhere I go, it gets a hotel handstand. I'm also a podcast host, so I host the podcast Design Pod and also Travel by Design by Marriott Bonvoy Traveller. And here's some sort of snapshots of the type of content that we're looking at on hotel designs. We're always trying to cut through the noise in order to find the hotels that are not necessarily at the forefront of people's minds, but have a really interesting design narrative. And that's what I'm going to explore today. So, in this session, I'm going to identify the hoteliers, the designers, the architects alike that are really pushing the boundaries to create exceptional spaces, full of personality, and that work both for client and guest. The common denominator, I think, in all of this is hotels designed human-centric. So spaces that can really perform and perform at their peak, really. So design, I think, plays a major role in today's hospitality experience. And I want to start with the Atlantis, the Royal. So we start our journey in a place where the impossible is regularly made possible. Dubai. More specifically, the Atlantis, the Royal, which is on the Palm in Dubai. So to create this feat in architecture, the hotel required 90,000 square meters of glass. That's the equivalent of 10 FIFA football pitches, 220,000 cubic meters of concrete, 5,500 tons of structural steel, and 150,000 square meters of marble. I am sick to death of hosting panel discussions talking about sustainability. Our industry is not innately sustainable. I sit on panel discussions and I hear from leading designers and architects and hoteliers and groups all about how they're sustainable, and yet the next 5 minutes I get a press release saying they're going to launch 5 new hotels in the next 2 years. But sustainability can be the key in order for design to be deeper and the narrative to flow more. This hotel is not an example of that, but what it is an example of is collaboration between the designers, the architects, even the fountain designers as well. It's an absolute marvel on the international hotel design stage. And what it does, I guess, is it shows what's possible through collaboration. And this is some interior design pictures inside. Okay, so in terms of disruption, when can it become too much? So Saudi Arabia is a prime example of a real disruption. I don't know if you guys know about the line. Does anyone? Yeah? Okay, so for those of you who don't know, it's a 106-mile vertical city that's being proposed in Saudi Arabia. It's roughly the size of Belgium, and lines have definitely been drawn on the ethical and sustainability sort of implications of this project. But we can't really ignore it because it is a disruptor on the hotel scene. What I think personally is a bit of a shame is that while this is happening, and also they claim to be sustainable as well, which is greenwashing at its finest, Europe is an amazing hospitality scene, and there's so many design narratives. And don't worry, we're not just going to talk about the biggest, the baddest hotel developments. Sometimes not all disruption is within the hotel, but the physical destination itself. This is Svart, which is Six Senses. So what I love about this hotel is that it's proposed to open in 2024. It is going to be, it's off the grid and it's going to be carbon neutral. But speaking to the developer, I guess the hospitality experience starts before you even check in. Because in order to go to this hotel, you've really got to commit. Therefore, in terms of the marketing, the PR around the hotel, how you engage with the audience, it's all around adventure, and you've kind of got your tribe already. Therefore, to market the hotel, you're going to be wanting to amplify the destination itself and not just inside. But that allows the design to work harder. The designers Space Copenhagen have the challenge of creating a carbon-neutral design scheme inside that is both contemporary and also works with the Six Senses brand because it's a Six Senses hotel. Let's take things back a bit. So I want to introduce Inhabit Hotels. So Inhabit Hotels launched in 2019 in London with the architects Holland Harvey Architects. And they were in a Grade 2 listed building. And I guess at the time, people would say that they can't really be sustainable. The excuse is it can't be sustainable because we're in a Grade 2 listed building. Well, Holland Harvey Architects completely rubbish that theory and have created really social design narratives inside. They've worked with local craftsmen. They've worked with local businesses in order to create a design narrative that really works with its neighborhood. And I want to just highlight one example. So they worked with a company called Granby Design on the second project for Inhabit Hotels. And what was remarkable about this is the stone in the original building. They've managed to compile it all together and create a terrazzo effect, which has become a statement fireplace. Unfortunately, I don't have an image of it. But what I think is interesting is, OK, a fireplace is not going to change the world. But what it does do is it shows us that things are possible by working with local suppliers and having conversations and asking the questions. If it's not possible now, well, it may be in a few years' time when technology, comes about. And what that's done is it's just created a really nice local feel within the hotel. OK, I want to take us now all the way to the Maldives. So this hotel is Gili Langkang Fushi, and it's known for having the largest standalone overwater villa in the world. It's amazing. It's incredible. But I don't want to talk about this villa. It is amazing, but I don't want to talk about it because I went to Gili Langkang Fushi and I was lucky enough to interview the designer who goes by the name of Maverick. He doesn't have a surname, he doesn't have a website, and he doesn't have a phone number. So I had to call him on a secure line. It was very bizarre. And I sat in this suite overlooking the sea. I was sat here, and he said to me, "Look to your right." So I looked to my right, and I was like, "Oh, there's a lamp." And he said, "Look closer." So as I look closer, you can't see it, unfortunately, because it's been cut off. But can you see? It's carved out to be a couple overlooking the water. Obviously, the whole idea is to look outside. It doesn't take much to look outside in this place, granted. But the design narrative is local. It's craftsman. A lot of the material in this hotel is actually designed and created on the island, which is really interesting. And it gets deeper. So bearing in mind that this hotel has the largest standalone overwater villa, which is the big PR story, it also has a wine cellar. And inside the wine cellar, there's this tree trunk. Can you see? And what I found absolutely fascinating is that washed up on the beach after the 2004 tsunami. And they've created that into their narrative. But look closer, and you see the walls have been cladded with wood that's also washed up on the shore from the same incident. And then I even looked even closer and noticed that the actual architecture of the wine cellar has been created around the tree trunk. So yes, it's got the largest overwater villa in the world, but it's also got an incredible design narrative that unfortunately isn't being talked about. And that is where I think design can work so well in your PR. And if you've got a local story, I urge you to talk about it, because that's all we want to hear is hotels that stand out from other hotels by being local and doing something different. And that's why I wanted to credit Gili Langkang Fushi. There's a hotel in the Alps in Mirabel called Le Coucou. And in Mirabel, there's architectural restrictions on the materials that you have to use on the outside. So every building has to obviously replicate the others, and they don't want large skyscrapers, which is beautiful. But the design narrative was to create a hotel that obviously stands out and is unique. So how do you do that? And Pierre Jovanovic is an amazing designer who I just think is like the haute couture version of interior design. And he's created this really lovely design narrative inside, which obviously referenced the local area. I love the carpet. It's and also the furniture. Everything's unique, and it's a unique approach to design. And it also has an incredible spa as well. And finally, my final sort of project that I want to reference is Amal Miami. So sometimes your greatest weaknesses can become the strength. So in this particular instance, and I also want to urge, if you're thinking about redesigning a hotel or thinking about redesigning, then speak to your designers, not just give them a brief and let them get on with it, but ask their opinions. So what happened with this project was the client spoke to Alessandro Munge from Studio Munge in Toronto, he said, oh, I've got an absolute nightmare. We're creating this restaurant in Miami in a really nice location, but we've got offices on the top, and we need to create a separate entrance so that they don't get disturbed. And Alessandro said, well, why don't you just allow the workers to walk through the restaurant in order to access the offices? Because they're the types of people that would be using the restaurant anyway. And what it's done is it creates a really nice, free-flowing space. But beyond that, because Alessandro hadn't worked on the design yet, it allowed him to just kind of soften the lines a bit. So you notice sofas in the F&B area. This is a high-end restaurant, but it's approachable, it's soft, it's a Lebanese restaurant as well. And there are notes to the Lebanese design all the way through. So in terms of challenges, your greatest weaknesses in certain projects or one day can become its strength moving forward. Okay, so we've spoken about loads of locations there in the first part of my presentation. But what about if a hotel doesn't have a location? What do we do then? Welcome to the metaverse. Please don't switch off. I hosted a panel discussion last year with three. So Pallavi Dean, who's an interior designer, Emma Chu, who is a fascinating researcher, and Tim Griffin, who's a hotelier, also does handstands. And they together are all working on different schemes and different ideas and concepts to introduce the hospitality element within the metaverse. And I was skeptical about this panel discussion. I had a sleepless night before the panel discussion because, to be honest with you, nobody has the answers because it's so forward-thinking. We don't really know where the metaverse is going to go, but we do know it's coming. So in March last year, a survey by Statistica showed that 36% of online adults expressed interest in using the metaverse. 60% of gamers have used the metaverse for non-gaming activities, such as socializing and shopping. 54% of technology experts anticipate the metaverse will offer immersive experiences by 2040. That's by Pew Research Center. And the metaverse market is expected to reach nearly $700 billion over the next 7 years. And finally, a quarter of the global population will spend a minimum of 1 hour in the metaverse by 2026. They're quite interesting statistics in terms of how prevalent the metaverse is going to be in our everyday life. And maybe not for our generation, fine, but look at the luxury market, look at the luxury hotel market. Can you identify who your demographic is these days? Because I bet you it won't be the same as 20 years ago. Fast forward 20 years from now, we have to be designing our hotels to suit all generations, and that includes Gen Z and forward from there. So when we were on this panel discussion, I think it was Pallavi Dean said, let's just rethink the metaverse, because it's scary. We don't really know where it's going. Don't think of it as a place. Think of it as like an extension to your website. And this is where it gets interesting, because Tim Griffin is one of the first hoteliers. So he worked with Ennismore. He used to be the managing director in North America. He's now set up his own business. He's opened a beautiful hotel in Manchester called Leven. And I reviewed it. I was first in. It's got this really amazing design narrative. It's very tactile, very residential. And to be honest with you, he was the last person I thought would be entering into the metaverse, given the fact that the hotel is so experiential in itself. It doesn't seem like it's going to lend itself well to a virtual world. But Tim's now created the Levenverse, and what it's allowed him to do is just enhance the hospitality, enhance the image of his brand, and make it more accessible for everyone. So, for example, if you're in the Levenverse, as it were, you can move around the spaces freely, and it's not designed, this is the biggest thing, it's not designed to work against the physical. Metaverse will never replace what's happening in real life, because hospitality is king, right? And it's all around people, and as I said earlier, it's all around being human-centric. But what it is allowing brands to do is just enhance their brand. Think of it as a website, for example. Who here is on social media? Who here is on social media? Who's got a social media account? Okay, who's got a website? Who looks at a website? Years ago, we would have been thinking that, before the internet even existed, it would be incomparable to understand how we are going to live our lives moving forward through technology. And I think the metaverse becomes interesting when you're enhancing your brand through narrative, essentially. Obviously, it's being driven by retail, by gaming, and and hotels are using this space. So Citizen M are in the metaverse now, and that's, I think, quite interesting in terms of how they're accessing a younger audience and unlocking that audience. I want to end before I'm absolutely around for questions, although I have got a flight to catch. I want to end with just a few quotes from one person in particular. So innovation is serendipity. So you don't know what people are going to make. The original idea of the web was so that it should be a collaborative space where you can communicate through sharing information. Anyone who has lost track of time using a computer knows the propensity to dream, the urge to make dreams come true, and the tendency to miss lunch. You affect the world by what you browse. We need diversity of thought in the world to face new challenges. Data is a precious thing that will last longer than the systems themselves. Isn't that true? We can't blame technology for the mistakes we make. They were all said by one person in particular, Tim Berners-Lee, who created the World Wide Web in 1989. All I would say is be open-minded to the possibilities of what's to come. My name's Hamish Kilburn. I'm the editor of Hotel Designs, and thank you. Are there any questions in terms of what I've said? Sorry. Any questions? No? Perfect. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the show.